Hi friends, today I want to talk to you about reverse exorcism. What do I mean by reverse exorcism? Well, I want to get to that, but maybe the best way to understand it and understand how not to do it in our own lives, especially in our relationship with God, is very important. So let's look for this in the scriptures, and in particular Mark 1:21 through 28. And it's that biblical scene where Jesus is in a synagogue and he's actually beginning his ministry in Capernaum in a synagogue. And this man who's possessed by a demon comes up to Jesus and he interrupts him. Now stop right there. Jesus gets interrupted when he proclaims the truth. And this happens not just in Jesus' day, but it's happening in our day, right? That there are people are made in the image and likeness, and they are proclaimed by God as good. But just like the world can be influenced by evil and corrupted by evil, so can our hearts, our minds, our histories, our hopes. So can we be corrupted by evil, right? So there are people corrupted by evil in our world today, even Christians, even people who are members of our family, who are trying to stop Jesus from proclaiming his truth and proclaiming what is good and beautiful. Now, certainly we can see this being done in our culture today by government policies, by what we're seeing happening in our schools, by what is we're trying to be controlled in regards to healthcare, or a host of other areas or sectors of our lives and our lifestyles, right? Trying to silence the voice of Jesus. But we can even have members of our own families, and we can even have our own hearts, that voice within each one of us. And when Jesus is proclaiming, either in a public way or in a very personal and intimate way, trying to speak to us, those voices from without or those voices from within us that we've learned to listen to, simply want to stop Jesus from proclaiming everything. Who he is, who we are, what our purpose is, and so on. So that's the first thing to pay attention to. But then listen to what the demon says to Jesus. What have you to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come here to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of Israel, the Holy One of God. Do you see what just happened? The demon that's in the man, possessing the man, names Jesus. You are the Holy One of God. Well, why is he doing that? Well, a little Jewish context here, super important. God taught his people as he was evolving them, forming them into a people, a family, a nation eventually, the nation of Israel. He taught them to cast out demons from human people. And a big part of that exorcism was for, like, the Jewish leader, the religious leader, to name the demon, like to ask the demon its name or their name. And that was an effort then to, once a person is named, once we know the name, then we can call out a greater name, like the Holy One of God, who's more powerful. Call upon that name, come over the name which is attached to the identity of a person, right? Like your name counts and my name counts, and when somebody says, hey, that's Father Dave Sizemore, then they know me, that's a whole rush of all kinds of things that identify me. So the name is important, okay? It goes back to the identity of the person. And so that Jewish leader would do that, and then the holy name, the greater name, the more powerful name, takes control of the lesser name and casts that name out, that identity out, that demon out. Okay? That's kind of just a bit, tip of the iceberg theology of exorcism in Jewish times. And in fact, it's interesting because we're Judeo-Christians, particularly us as Catholics, we've remained true to our Judeo-Christian faith. Catholic priests, when they go through the formal rite of exorcism, part of that rite is for those priests. Priest never does it alone. He's always with the team. Those priests go in, and one of the first things they do is ask the name of the demon so that they can use a greater name, the name of Jesus Christ, to begin the ministry of exorcism. Wow. The demon is the one who is doing this here. And so I think in a particular way, we can say this is a type of reverse exorcism. Exorcising not a demon, as God has taught his people, but the demon trying to use the same method to exorcise Christ. He knows who he is. He names him the Holy One of God because he wants to cast him out. Cast him out of the synagogue. You know, first he tries to silence him, right? Interrupts him. And now he wants to, interrupts his work. Now he wants to cast him out of the synagogue. So that Jesus cannot proclaim the truth of who he is, of who we are, and everything that is part of the good news, the gospel. Our purpose, our identity in this world. Now, this is all very, very important for us. Because what does Jesus do? Jesus does not allow this to happen. In fact, Jesus immediately silences the demon that is in the man. And how does he do this? He knows who the demon is, so he doesn't have to name him. Okay? He knows who he is, so he doesn't have to name himself, right? He just simply, because he is God, the Holy One of God, he simply says, silence, come out of him. And what the gospel writer is helping us to see is who is the most powerful here? Is it the demon? Is it Satan and his minions, the demonic forces? Or is it God? And at the very beginning, this is the very beginning of Jesus' ministry. It begins in a synagogue in Capernaum, right? After he performs his first first miracle, right? The miracle in Cana. The beginning of his preaching ministry, he shows his power. He shows the world. He shows all of time. Satan is trying to give you a lie that evil in this world is as powerful as God or more powerful, right? Because there's so many manifestations of evil in this world. But actually God's more powerful. The manifestations of evil in this world are when humanity, you and I, allow evil, meaning what the enemy of God offers us, is when you and I believe that what the enemy offers us is better than what God offers us. And then we start to live a life of a type of possession. I wouldn't, in this case, call it like a formal possession, but a type of that is oppression. They come from the same Latin root. When we're oppressed, okay, then we allow, like another person starts to oppress us, we allow that person through the oppression to influence us. You know, like oppressing us to influence us by fear, or oppressing us by influencing us by lies, by deceit, by whatever form they're using. Well, that's demonic oppression. And it comes to us, it happens to us, whenever we believe the lie, all the way back to the Garden of Adam and Eve, and then believing that what the enemy, the serpent, was offering them was better than what God was offering them. So that's how it happens. And from the very beginning of Jesus' ministry, he shows us that the reason why the world is the way it is not just because of Satan. It's because there are many human beings like you and I who are living lives where we're allowing the enemy to oppress us. And in our walk as Christians, to suppress us, to keep us from doing the work that God has given us and living the life that God has given us. And that's what the demon is doing in this man. It's not just possession. He's trying to oppress him and he's trying to suppress him. Okay? You get it? You understand? Now, Jesus says silence come out of him. And so he is showing us, you and I, not just then, but here and now, I'm so much more important. I'm so much more powerful. All I have to do is just say a word and I can vanquish this little minion of the devil. Right? And that should give all of us hope who live lives of oppression and suppression. Oppressed by the lies. We're deceived into believing and think it's best for us, and then how it suppresses our lives. Not just as Christians, but then it leads us in other types of suppression. And we feel anxious all the time and listless and depressed and purposeless, you know. Okay. A few things for us to see here. The demon knows who Jesus is. Yet even knowing who Jesus is, he chooses not to follow Jesus. He chooses, in fact, because God gives every human being and every creature in heaven, he gave them the opportunity for freedom, that is to choose them, including the angels. And remember, the demons are fallen angels. So the demon uses his freedom, twisted by the lie that he doesn't need God, falls out of heaven, becomes a demon, twisted by evil. He rebels against Jesus. Now, this should strike us as Christians in particular, I think, because we claim, as people who take the name of Jesus, we claim to know something about who Jesus is, to know something about who God is. We also are told through our Christian faith that we have freedom. And therefore we have freedom to choose God, and not just every day, but several moments, minutes, hours of the day, several activities throughout our day, constantly being called upon to engage our freedom in a variety of ways, including our freedom. Am I going to follow God in this decision, in this action, in this lifestyle, in this relationship, in this temptation, in this want, in this need? Am I going to follow God in the reality of who I know He is and who I know I am, in the midst of all else that's being presented to me as somehow better than God? Am I going to use my freedom? Because I know who God is. What I'm getting at here is that the very thing that the demon is trying to do to Jesus, cast him out through a reverse exorcism, is the very thing that you and I have the potential of doing. Because we know who God is. We call out His name. We don't know Him fully, and that's why we make mistakes. That's why we get Him wrong. That's why we sin, because we don't know Him fully. If we knew Him fully, we would never do the stupid things that we do to ourselves and other people. So we know something of Him, and we have freedom. And we use our freedom then to cast Jesus out of our lives. We rebel against Him. We rebel against what He offers us because we want something else that someone else or life is offering us. Or we grasp for something that we know in our depths is not good for us, but there's all kinds of other things influencing us and saying, this is good. You know, I want it, and I want it now. And we have the potential and the opportunity, and I dare say that there have been us as Christians who have tried to perform a reverse exorcism on Jesus, to silence Him, to cast Him out of our lives, cast Him out of our relationships, cast Him out of our activities. Another thing that I think that we need to keep in mind here is the people that were around Jesus in the synagogue. Mark tells us that they were amazed at his teaching authority. That is, submitting himself as the Son of God to the Father, and then boldly living out the proclaiming of the truth and the truth of who he is. And when he does that, he wins all of these followers. Many people start to follow him, beginning with his ministry in Capernaum. Well, the same goes for you and I. Is that when you and I boldly live out our faith, when we boldly live out the truth of who God is, when we live out the truth of who we are, then people will take notice of that. And we will win over the hearts and the minds and the lives of so many other people, because we know who God is and we know who we are. And that freedom, remember that freedom, we use the freedom that God gave us in conjunction with his will. We live according to his will rather than living our will. Then guess what? We're also able to cast out the demons from other people's lives. We're Christians. When you go back to the Latin word for Christian, it means we're a little Christ. We're little anointed ones. Like at our baptism, we're little chosen ones. Right? We're little messiahs. Who God calls into this world to help redeem the lives of others through his power. And so we have the ability to cast out evil from the lives of other people. Now, there's a very important thing I want you to hold on to here, okay? And that's this. Jesus never attacks the man. He goes for the demon. He never harms the man. In fact, he sets the man free. We can only imagine the man and so many others, well, the gospel writer tells us that so many others, in the beginning of Jesus' ministry, follows Jesus. So when we live our freedom in our will, our self-will, and we do it in conjunction with God's will, and we boldly live out who God is and boldly live out who we are, then we can start to see the evil that's in other people. Now, again, I'm not calling other people evil, and we mustn't either. God created every human being in his image and likeness, and so at their fundamental level, they are worthy of being called sons and daughters of God, but who have been twisted by the lies of evil, who are being possessed, others, many of us, experiencing spiritual oppression, spiritual suppression. And then we shape our lifestyles and our relationships and our activities and what we engage in according to that. But when we live our lives like Christ, like little Christians, then we can see the evil that's influencing other people, like through their ideas, through their opinions, through their ideologies. Then we don't attack the person who has these ideas and ways of living that are contrary to the gospel of Jesus Christ. No, we accompany them just as Jesus did, with his own disciples. When he found all of his disciples, they were all in different ways wayward, right? Just like we are, and he accompanied them. And so we accompanied them in their lostness in this world today. We love them. We're, like Jesus says, we're patient like he is with us. We're generous with our time. We offer them hope. We offer them a different way. Then over time, people are worth our time. By our words and our actions, we eventually cast out the evil that's inside of them, that has twisted them in their identity and their love, their thinking, their wounded hearts, their hurts, their hopes. And then all can be restored. And I'm telling you this, that this is possible for you, and this is possible for everyone else that you love, and everyone else that God will put in your life as your ministry. Reverse exorcisms, are they real? Yeah. And it's not just demons trying to cast out God from their presence. It's you and I that are often, unbeknownst to us, even as we call ourselves Christians, by the way we live our lives and our relationships and our actions, are trying to perform reverse exorcisms on Jesus. And all we have to do is allow God to do to us what he did to that demon. Silence. Be out of him. And if we allow that, just like silence on all those voices that are inside of us, and silence the ones that we're listening to outside of us, then God's truth of who he is can be proclaimed, and who we are can be lived. And we can take that precious freedom that God has given us, and we can live boldly the beauty and the goodness that God offers us. And we can go into the lives of the people in our lives that we love the most and who are lost the most. And we can cast those demons out of them and save them. Till next time, friends.